again. Welcome back to the GamesIndustry.biz Investment Summit online, sponsored by Xsolar. This session is called Angel Investment, Are You Investor Ready? And features industry legend Ian Livingstone, CBE, co-founder of Games Workshop, creator of the Fighting Fantasy books, and of course, previously, the boss of Eidos Interactive, where he was instrumental in publishing a small British indie game called Tomb Raider. Thanks for taking part in the Investment Summit today, Ian.
Hello there.
Good stuff. Now, Ian, you are an industry person who is also putting their money where their mouth is by investing your own hard-earned cash in the video games business as an angel investor. So do you want to start by talking about some of the investments that you've made in games?
Well, I've turned my passion of playing games into a lifelong career. I've been in the industry 45 years. It defines me who I am as a human being, and having really enjoyed creating content as an executive and a creator, I also wanted to carry on, even at my old age, to be still involved in a great way in the games industry. I mean, work and play is the same for me. I never want to retire. I'm still chairman of Sumo Group, based in Sheffield, and also a partner in Hero Capital, a VC fund. But I really enjoy angel investing, helping the new talent start off on what could be an amazing career and an opportunity like none other in this digital world to make something really special, which can appeal to a global audience. So some of the companies I've invested in, some very successfully, I was one of the seed investors in Playdemic, who created Golf Clash. People might be familiar with Golf Clash, developed by an extraordinary team up in Wilmslow near Manchester, a mobile game that's been generating north of $100 million a year for a few years now. And that started off because of quite a simple idea to play one hole of golf. But there's some of the things about Playdemic is, well, I'll talk about the individual requirements I look for in a team, but some of the other companies I've been involved with is Mediatonic, extraordinary games company in London. I've invested in Fusebox, the developers and publishers of the Love Island game, and I've also been involved with and invested in Flavorworks. I'm chairman of Flavorworks, who create interactive video with real video using touchscreen technology, and also been featured on PlayStation. Also chairman investor in Midoki, based in Leamington Spa, who created Plunder Pirates and more recently Knighthood. Each time I look for a common denominator in the team, but differentiable bits to their offering in terms of product. So do you like me to explain what I like about the teams?
Yeah, I think so. I think, what sort of attracts you to them? Is it the teams first, or is it obviously the project that gets you excited first?
Well, I have quite a rigorous checklist I've developed over the years. This is a people's business. Now, when people say to me, what are the three most important things about a game? I always say it's gameplay, gameplay, gameplay. Technology and graphics play clearly a supporting role, a critical role, but nevertheless a supporting role. But when I talk to people, to teams about, they've got a great idea for a game, or they've developed a prototype, there is a kind of, as an angel, I'm taking a lot of risk. This is likely to be pre-revenue, sometimes no more than an idea. So you have to make sure there are certain things in place before you put the money down. Lots of people have ideas. It's the ability to execute on their ideas that's the hard bit. So what am I looking for? Clearly, I'm looking for a great senior leadership team, the founders. A lot of creative people do not partner with business people. And for me, I think it's really important. Being a creative person myself, I understand the value of the business, being able to scale my business. There's no point in a creative person ordering toilet rolls, doing the VAT returns, submitting the annual accounts. What they should be doing is concentrating on the content to make the best game possible. So I like to see a team with a strong creative director and a strong managing director who work in partnership. The creative director does not have to give up control to the business person. The business partner should facilitate that person who is creating the content to grow, to scale to global audiences, to create the right business model, and to do all the things that the creative person shouldn't be doing and probably can't do anyway. So first off, it's number one is people, the senior team. Then I think, what technology do they have? What do they own? What intellectual property do the studio have? Is it their own IP? Are they looking to self-publish their own content? Are they looking to be a work-for-hire outfit? What is their raison d'etre? What are the next, I need to know what they've done before. I like to see people with scars in their backs, as the Americans say, skin in the game. What have you actually committed yourselves in terms of work to get to the point you are? How much money have you personally invested? Are you afraid of failure? For me, failure is a success work in progress. When I started Games Workshop with Steve Jackson back in the 70s, we were forced to live in a van for some 3 months because it was impossible at that time to raise funding for our embryonic business when we were Dragons. So I like to see some people who've suffered a little bit and to make sure that they are in it for the right reason. And you have to love making games. Otherwise, do something else, because there's so much competition there. If your heart's not in it, if you're not passionate about the industry, really, I'd do something else. So do they understand the business of creativity? There's lots of creative studios that are sometimes self-indulgent, both in terms of not looking at the market opportunity, the business model they're going to employ, and they're making a game for themselves, and yet they still expect other people to invest in that proposition. Do they understand how to scale to a global market? Do they know about partnerships in China, how to access difficult markets? Does their proposition resonate with a global market? And I'm not too interested in derivative products or Me Too products or strange hybrids or something that can't be described succinctly. I'm not particularly interested in a PowerPoint presentation with profit and loss accounts and projections, because when a game hasn't launched, people have no idea how that game is going to perform. So I'd rather get excited by the content and the team. Show me what you can do. Is this an exciting proposition? What's your business model? And then you might get my interest.
Yeah. And what, for developers who are looking for investment, what exactly is the difference between an angel investor and a venture capitalist investor? And is it just the amount of money that's coming in, or is it much more about the relationship that you have with that company? Well,
I wear both hats. I say I was an angel investor in the companies I mentioned earlier, and that's really usually pre-revenue. It's backing an idea or a team or a proposition without any guarantees of success. Hopefully, you've had enough experience to make sure that the team you've backed is going to be successful, but there's no guarantees. And that's usually a limited amount of money. A VC usually steps in. So wearing my Hero Capital hat, we do kind of follow-on funding. There's a huge gap now for follow-on funding. Only 2% of games companies in the UK currently attract VC funding. And I think that's kind of a disconnect between the studios themselves and what they've created and the investor community. There's a kind of a disconnect of understanding. And hopefully, again, I can bridge that gap, having been on both sides of the fences. So a VC fund will typically invest in terms of Hero, Series A, which is an investment between £1 and £3 million, or Series B, which is following on again from £3 to £7 million. And of course, to give that kind of money away, it's not a question of just saying, we like your idea. By this point, the game and the studio will have had to have been involved in generating revenue, and then being able to withstand quite rigorous due diligence about the technology, about the business proposition, about the team itself. And we drill quite deeply into the workings. So we would expect a data room to be given over to access by our various people on the team who do specific duties. So I think you have to be able to stand up to some rigorous diligence on your team, your studio, and your product.
Yeah, I mean that's something that we hear quite a bit from VCs when we're asking, what are the red flags, and it seems to be that a sort of tidy company, any company that's got loose ends and they don't know where certain investors are or people on their board, if it's quite messy, that can affect whether they get investment or not. Is that something, is that a red flag for you?
Well, you have, if a messy cap table is difficult to invest in. I've had tragic tales of a small studio having given away quite a large chunk of their companies for some very early seed funding, sometimes giving away 50% of their company for like 10 grand or 20 grand just to get them going, which is horrendous if they suddenly want to raise a substantial amount of money because there's not enough equity for the VCs to participate in because some tiny contributor has got a disproportionate amount of capital. So you have to kind of readjust the cap table or buy some of the other founders out, kind of the sleeping partners out, to be able to facilitate not just the initial investment, but the follow-on funding that will no doubt occur if the game is successful. So you have to watch also as your own cap table so it doesn't become too complex to make outside investment possible.
Yeah, we've had a couple of questions in already, quite a few actually. I'm just going to ask one from Jason Darby. He says, a number of times I've tried to get investments and it's been a very dragged out process. How do you speed this up as an indie without alienating the investor?
Answer their questions and also make sure that the investor's not just kicking the tires for information, is not serious about investing. So I think that's down to the individual to be quite diligent on their side to force the investor into a decision. But don't forget, the due diligence period does take a lot of time, and when you're a VC fund, there's lots of fiduciary duties on its part to make sure that the money they've received from their own shareholders is not being frittered away without its own due diligence. So there is a kind of lengthy process to go through. But from regards to an angel investor, that should be quite simple, because that's just a personal investment by one person rather than somebody that's backed by other shareholders. So just get on it. And that's
yeah, I mean, this is it. I mean, in your experience, how long would an angel investment take from seeing the game, getting excited, meeting the company? Is it sort of 6 months to a year usually?
The more information you can give an investor, the easier that decision is to make. So if I like the team, but there's nothing to see, you have to get comfortable about if they're going to be able to deliver on their promise. So if a studio has a game in development and with an analysis of the market opportunity and they have some KPIs and data and they've already gone into soft launch, then it's a question of investing in scale as opposed to just taking a complete gamble, which you then have to make your own mind up. So if you can supply data and show you've got the correct business model for your game, and depending what platform it is, and you've done some reasonable analysis, and you understand, if say for mobile, about the whole acquisition, retention, and monetization of users and lifetime value, and without trying to tell people how to develop the games, but they have to be able to prove to me that they understand the market and the opportunity that they're trying to present.
Yeah. When you're talking there about lots of different things that companies can make themselves more investable, is there any like one particular thing that you would say you must do this?
I think the main thing for me is the ability to deliver, to budget, to schedule a proposition that was given at the onset, to give investors comfort. And for me as an angel investor, it's not just a question of here's my money, see you in a couple of years' time, let me know how it goes. Most investors, and wearing my VC hat with Hero Capital, we give as much help and support as a team requires. So being very much involved with games design over the years, I'd like to help out with games design if it's required. I certainly can help with different business models and different platforms, and even at my old age I can still understand, because I read a lot about the future of games, the players, the fact that the games industry is no longer just a games industry, it's an entertainment industry, and how games are creating the third space, the metaverse that we've seen Fortnite during the current pandemic. So users rise from 250 million to 350 million, 12 million concurrent viewers of the Travis Scott performance recently. You've seen how people not just play games, but they go inside games to communicate. This has become the third space for the current generation, and that itself is an opportunity and is very descriptive of where the industry is going. We've seen the huge media companies come into the game space now with Google and Facebook and Apple, and all the major media players are now seeing games industry as the go-to entertainment industry for today's generation. So that you have to look as much to the future as you can based on what you know from history. So being aware of trends and business models for me is key.
Yeah. I'm just conscious of obviously looking at questions that have been asked as well. A very interesting one here from Matt Hall. The UK and the US, etc., have a strong games and technology investment culture. Other countries and territories aren't so lucky. So do you have advice for those in other territories that perhaps don't have these networks?
Well, it's a question of getting in contact. Whilst Hero is a UK and it's also a European fund, and Hero is also about to make an investment in a US company. So, funds, whilst they might be located geographically in one country, are very able to invest in other countries. So it's a question of get in touch.
Is the best way of reaching out to you? I hear this a lot. Is being recommended by another investor or somebody that knows you. But can people approach investors through like LinkedIn and things like that? Is it fine to cold call in a way?
Yeah, more than happy. I would never. I don't want to be bombarded by millions of ideas, but if people think they have an investable proposition, I would clearly look at it either as an angel or through Hero Capital. I mean, you can go to the Hero website if you're looking for follow-on funding, or you can approach me through Twitter or LinkedIn as an individual, as looking for angel investment, for sure.
Yeah, sorry, and you broke up a bit there, so I missed that last bit.
I was saying, from an angel point of view, you can approach me through Twitter or through LinkedIn, and if you're looking for VC funding, go to the Hero Capital website and register your interest there.
Fantastic. Obviously, a lot of companies today are pitching to investors and publishers. So, do you have any advice for them and to in any mistakes that they can avoid?
Don't appear. I think that the greatest tip I would say is that you have to prove provide as much comfort as possible. As I said earlier, you have to show the team works, the technology works, the business model works. A demonstration of your product, if possible, is for me is pretty important. And a track record is, goes without saying, is an enormous benefit for anyone making decisions about future investment.
I'm just going to look at another question from Sebastian Kreutz. How do you deal with questions such as company valuation pre-revenue when there are no metrics to base the value on?
It just depends. The valuations aren't that important right at the beginning. It's trying to figure out how much money a company is trying to raise. Clearly, with no revenues, it can be difficult, but there are lots of things that we can agree on valuation, given the track record, given the proposition, given the data that can be provided. So it's usually a question of negotiation, not like Dragon's Den, but more of looking at comparables and the market opportunity. It's a big discussion. What is annoying if somebody tells me pre-revenue that their company is worth X, because there's no way of knowing what X could possibly be.
Yeah, I think the Dragon's Den program is a little unfair. I've talked to other people, obviously, who've looked for investment, and it's very rare that you would get such an antagonistic meeting with investors. I mean, usually it's, you know, you're looking for a partner, you're looking for somebody, you know, who's interested in your company, it isn't going to tear you to pieces.
Yeah, I mean, the Dragon's Den thing always seems to me a little bit patronizing or antagonistic. Yeah, I think, you know, from my point of view, I want to feel part of a team. You know, this is a people's business. You're investing in people more than anything else, and people have to go down. So, you know, I'd need to get on with the people I'm investing in for sure.
Yeah, sure. I've got another question here about somebody, Black Sands Entertainment. They own a strong indie brand in the US for African American audiences. Are strong brands worthy of VC capital, even if they don't have in-house developers? I think they're talking about, you know, just owning the IP.
Clearly, you get greater multiples if you own your own IP. So it's still obviously investable as a, you know, based on revenues. Any studio that's using other people's brands, but you'll always get a greater multiple on the value of your business if the IP is owned by the company itself. Yeah.
Good stuff. I was going to just ask a quick question at the end, actually, just about the current kind of strange situation we're in with the pandemic and everything. And I just wondered if there's any advice for companies at this time about what they can do, because, you know, I'm hearing some things about investors pulling back on some investments and concentrating on their own portfolio and things like that. Is it still a good time for people to be looking for investment?
I think in the games industry, I think there's almost never been a greater time. I mean, the games industry is one of the few industry success stories during the pandemic. You know, revenues are up and it's business as usual for developers working from home using cloud-based development platforms. You know, and from a point of an investor, the video games industry ticks all the right boxes for a kind of post-COVID digital economy. You know, it's high tech, high skills, instant export, regional, it's not reliant on London, intellectual property creating, you know, time is right now. And so, you know, I'm seeing quite a lot of deal flow wearing my hero hat, you know, as chairman of Sumo. You know, the share price has recovered to the pre-COVID levels. So there's a lot of good things to say about the game industry. You know, as I say, it ticks all the boxes for the post-COVID network economy. Content is consumed digitally and content is created digitally. You know, what's not to like?
Yeah, absolutely. Mentioning Sumo there, we had a question about you working at the Sumo Group. So what attracted you to working with Sumo, and what do you think are the most interesting private companies in the UK at the moment? So just give us all the companies that you're about to invest in, Ian.
Well, Sumo is a great British success story. I think it hasn't had as much plaudits as it receives, as it deserves, rather. You know, nearly some 800 people now, headquartered in Sheffield, but studios all around the UK, in Leeds, in Newcastle, in Brighton, in Leamington Spa, in Warrington, Pune, and in Vancouver. They've created amazing games, usually for third-party publishers. So working currently on over 18 titles, of which only 3 are actually being able to spoke about, because, you know, under NDA, working for some of the senior platform holders and publishers Sumo is not able always to talk about what they're doing. But the great thing about Sumo is that they are a premium service company making, you know, the best-in-class AAA products for all the major platform holders and publishers. So, you know, as a large independent studio, it's certainly one of the best in the world. And they're a great people to be with. So I was delighted to become chairman.
Right, sorry about that, Ian.
Hello?
Out a bit there. Sorry about that. Good stuff. Thank you for that. Right, I think we've actually come to the end of the session now. So thank you very much for taking part in that. That was brilliant. Thank you. Big thanks to you, Ian. Thank you.
All right.
Fantastic. So our next session is a panel, How to Get Your Game Funded, at 12:30 in just a few minutes. And you can find the YouTube link on investmentsummit.gamesindustry.biz. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in a bit. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.